I came down through a sky the color of old glass. Year 2345. We were 4 in the descent skiff. Water below. Islands like dark coins on a blue table. The air was clean and salted. The quiet was enough. Ada guided us with one hand on the stick. Harrow watched the gauges. Dr. Lin leaned forward, studying the chain of islets that ran like a spine across the inner sea. I held the mic to my chest and said nothing. Sometimes silence is the only clear report. Far above us, the carrier circled. Its belly doors stayed open for the flying ships that crossed this world. They looked like pirate ships, but they were not. Keels were carbon, ribs were lattice. Their sails were vector membranes, faintly lit with ions. They rode thrustless fields, not wind. They moved with the grace of story and the truth of physics. The quiet was enough. We broke a cloud, and the sea rose to meet us. A ring of cliffs shaped the near horizon. In the cliffs, mouths of caves. In the caves, if the legends were anything but noise, a single relic waited. A lantern that did not burn. A lantern that preserved. People here called it the Remainlight. They said if you looked into it, you could not be taken by time. Not deathless, they warned. Different. Most stories ran out of breath before they reached the end. We were here to breathe all the way through. Ada set us down on the gentle edge of a sandbar. Foam reached our boots and fell away again. Harrow locked the skiff and checked the field pack. Dr. Lin touched the water and smiled. I felt the air rest on my shoulders. The quiet was enough. We pushed inland across a narrow path of crushed shell, palm shade, stone, the soft chirr of unseen things. On the inland side, a small village waited in the distance, low buildings and tall masts, like a fleet had decided to live on land for a while. A man stood on the path, as if he had been there for a century and had never been surprised. His beard was white and close. His eyes were clear. His coat was rough-sailed cloth, patched with polymer thread. "You came from the high ships," he said. His voice was steady, like surf that has learned patience. "We did," I said. "We're here about the lantern." "We're all here about the lantern," he said. "Come, we don't bow to it, we remember it." He turned and walked without asking our names. We followed, because there are doors that only open if you do. He took us through the village. Children practiced gliding with kites that hummed. The kites were small cousins of the big sails, ion ribs that drank the charge from the air. Fish hung to dry in long lines that shimmered. "This island is called Anam," he said. "I'm called Soran. I keep the telling. Others keep the maps. Others keep the boats. No one keeps the lantern." "Prophets?" Dr. Lion asked, gentle. "Witnesses," Soran said. "We forecast weather. We warn the young about rocks. We tell what happened when we remember. If someone says the lantern makes you live forever, we tell the costs. If someone says it's a trick, we tell the bodies we carried." We stopped by a low hall built into the hill. Wind bells made from thin ceramic plates hung in the shade. They did not ring, they breathed. Inside, the floor was cool. Charts filled the walls. Not star charts, pressure maps, fault lines, cave mouths, trails of current marked with hand ink and sensor traces. Soran poured water for us. He waited until we drank. Then he pointed to a grainy print that had been touched many times. In the picture, a man held a cylinder with a lattice of glass and dark metal. No flame lived inside, only a held kind of light, like the inside of a pearl given a pattern. He was called Ilen, Soran said, but the story is not about his name. It is about who he chose to be when the water moved. He let the room fold into quiet for a few breaths. The quiet was enough. "Storm year," Soran said, "before your ships came down, before we were known, the trench floor shifted. We saw the water retreat in a long, clean line, like a hand clearing crumbs. Those who know the sea do not run out toward it, they climb." Ilen climbed. He had a partner, Ari. She was not from here. She wrote the codes for the sails. She tuned the fields that let wood float on charge. She was the reason the pirates learned to glide without wind. She did not like the word pirate. None of us do. Most of those ships are not thieves. They are inheritance with engines. "Wave?" Harrow asked softly. "Wave," Soran said. "Fast, clean, heavy." He saw a child slip on the slope. Ari was farther down, trying to wake a boat field. Ilen went to the child first. He tied the child to a line. He passed the child up. Then he tried to wake the boat with Ari. The field stuttered. The wave took them both. Soran exhaled. He did not close his eyes. "He woke in the cave," Soran said. "Not dead, not fully alive. The cave closest to the old trench. He woke with the lantern in his hands." No flame, just the lattice sheen. The first thing he heard was Ari, still in the water, calling to him from a pocket of air behind a fall of stone. There was no air for long. The lantern brightened when he turned toward her. Not light, not heat, a pattern that wanted the living. I felt my throat tighten. Dr. Lyon's hands rested in her lap as if she was holding something fragile and invisible. "What did it do?" she asked. "It held him," Soran said. "It held what he was. The more he looked into it, the more the holding grew. He could move, he could choose, but time's teeth could not find him. He dragged air toward Ari. He brought down a vent. He cut his arm on basalt, and the cut stayed open, like a line drawn in water that refuses to close. He did not bleed out. The lantern would not let the count finish. He asked Ari to look into it, and he would turn it so they both could be held until the water fell. She said no. "Why?" Ada asked. "Because Ari could do the math," Soran said. "The lantern was a keeper, not a healer. It preserved state, it did not repair. If she looked, she would be held with her lung half drowned, her shoulder pinned, her fear made permanent. She told Ilen to use it for one thing only, one burst of keeping, to move the stones and then to stop. He did not stop. He could not. He kept himself until she was free. Then he tried to step back into time. He couldn't do it all at once. The lantern unwound him like thread. He aged a little, then not. He bled, then not. He slept with his eyes open. He watched the tides that did not touch him." Soran held the old photo as if it had a pulse. "What happened to Ari?" I asked. "She lived," Soran said. "She kept living. She tuned the sails for those who took care. She would not let the lantern be used for comfort. She said it was a tool for last chances. She said it could buy seconds that would not fit inside minutes. She took her partner's hand many times and felt a temperature that never warmed. She asked him to turn the lantern away from his face. He did, for a time. But when the storms came, when rocks fell, he looked again. He saved more than one child. He saved strangers. He began to forget himself in the keeping. He wrote his name on the wall to remember. Ilen, Ilen, Ilen. The letters stayed new while the wall aged. The wind bells sighed once, very gentle. "Is he alive?" Harrow asked, quiet. "He is not dead," Soran said. "He is not here. He is in the caves where the field is strongest. Sometimes we see a reflection that does not match the water. Sometimes we hear steps that do not trip on loose stone. We do not call it haunting. We call it remainder." I let the silence stand. The quiet was enough. Dr. Leon rubbed her thumb along the edge of the print. "I think I know pieces of what we're looking at," she said. "A preservation lattice, photonic memory bound to a single coherent field, bioelectric mapping that refuses entropy within the window of exposure. No cell repair, no synthesis. Just a pause that can be held, moved, focused." "Old," Soran said. "Older than us. Older than your carrier. The first to find it weren't us. They came before we had words for them. They left tools in the caves that don't rust. We used the metal and left the shapes. They had a signal style we copied for our sails. We call them the groundfarers because they seemed to walk through stone like sea." Ada looked at the cave map on the wall. "Can you take us?" she asked. "I can take you to the mouth," Soran said. "After that, you take yourself. We have a rule. We do not carry choice past the dark." We went out with him near dusk. The local ships slid through the sky above us, low and sure. Vector membranes caught and redirected charge like invisible wind. Their hull lights pulsed in slow, friendly language. You could read their mood by the rate. Tonight, they were unhurried. The quiet was enough. The cliff path was scored by old water and newer feet. The cave mouth opened like a yawn that had learned patience. "You will feel something when you cross the threshold," Soran said. "Like a hand on the back of your neck. It is not a hand, it is the field. Do not be brave by pretending you don't feel it. Breathe, let it be honest." He touched the wall with his palm. "Return if you feel yourself forgetting a simple word," he said. "Any word you love. Your name, the taste of salt, the color of the sky when it clears." Those words are anchors. If the cave asks you to put them down, do not bargain. "Understood," I said. He gave me a small coil of line and a marker made from polished shell. "Every 20 steps," he said, "mark. We will read your story if we need to." We went in. The first breath inside tasted like cold metal and far thunder. Harrow's lamp drew a circle on the floor. Dr. Leon turned her scan to minimal so we wouldn't push the field. Ada walked with her hand just above the wall, not touching. We passed old tools in niches, stone shapes with square faces, bars, lattices. Nothing corroded, nothing dusty. As if the cave inhaled only what it could keep. 20 steps. I marked the wall. A simple line. 20 more. Another line. After the 4th mark, the air changed. Not colder, closer. I lifted the lamp. The beam bent in a way light does not bend unless someone asks it to. "It's here," Dr. Lyon said, a whisper that was also a prayer. We came into a chamber shaped by water and something like intention. Basalt fell in smooth ribs. At the center stood the lantern from the photo, only not as small as I had believed. It was the size of a human chest, a lattice of dark metal and pearl glass. No flame. The inside looked like the surface of a lake lit by dawn, held close and folded. I felt the hand on the back of my neck. Soran had named it well. It wasn't a threat. It was an attention. The lantern noticed us, or I believed it did. It's hard to know the difference that deep in quiet. "Remember," Dr. Lyon said, "no full exposure, not in the eyes. Reflections only. We log patterns. We observe how it interacts with us. We keep our words." I set the lamp low and angled it, so we saw the lantern in the edge of light. We saw more than light. We saw ourselves slowed and softened. Harrow's breath became a long ribbon. Ada's pulse at her neck became a small sea. Dr. Lyon's eyes held 1,000 tiny suns, all very still. I blinked and felt the blink last longer than it should, like my lids had been asked to rest. "The field is anthropic," Dr. Lyon said, voice steady. "It prefers patterns that prefer themselves. It's mapping us. It's offering the option. Don't accept. Observe." I anchored on a word, salt. I pictured the taste. I said it in my mind, salt. The cave let me keep it. The quiet was enough. On the far wall, a series of marks caught the lamp. Letters. Not from this island. From old standard, written by a careful hand, learning to be careful again each day. Ilen, Ilen, Ilen. Fresh, though the wall had grown a thin skin of mica around each name, as if protecting it. Harrow crouched. "The cut," he said, soft to himself. He pointed to a stain that was not stain, brown rust that did not spread, a line of blood that had chosen not to finish what blood does. I heard something then, not voice, not foot. A decision being made in a room I could not enter. "Back a step," Dr. Lyon said, gentle. "Then breathe. Then cut power by one." We did. The beam cooled. The lantern remained exactly itself. "Legend says immortality," Ada said, still watching the center of the lattice, careful not to look directly. "Your telling says endurance with price. If someone looked into it full and let it hold them, what then?" "They would remain," Dr. Lyon said, "held as a pattern in a living field. Not dead, not aging in the usual way, but not free. You could move within the holding. You could help at the edges of time. You could buy seconds for others. You would be a bridge and a wall at once. And one day, when the field fails or moves on, the remainder would come due all at once." "Like a wave," I said. "Like a wave," she said. I thought of Ilen writing his name on the wall again and again. I thought of Ari refusing the comfort that would have made her fear permanent. I thought of the fact that the world had water, and the water kept its stories very close. Behind us, the cave exhaled. I felt the pressure shift. The hand on my neck withdrew half a finger. Something had changed outside. We turned. A figure stood in the mouth of the chamber, half in shadow. He was not Soran. He was tall and thin, wearing a coat with the cut of a deckhand and the stance of a man who had leaned against railings for years. "You shouldn't be here without a keeper," he said. His voice was dry but not unkind, "even if you are the High Ones." "We came with Soran," I said. "I know," he said. "He asked me to watch the tide from above. I did. It's doing a small trick. It may do a larger one." He stepped in, careful with his eyes. He did not look at the lantern. He looked at the wall. He put his hand next to the name and did not touch it. "I sailed with Ari," he said, "once, long ago. She taught me that sometimes the right thing to save is a sentence, not a life. If the sentence lives, sometimes the life finds it later." He took a breath. "The corsairs will come at dawn," he said. "Not to steal, to beg. They have a captain who is failing. His synapses are burning wrong from field exposure. They think the lantern can hold him until a doctor from your ships can mend him. Maybe it can, but sometimes the lantern keeps more than we want to keep. If you assist, you will need to decide when to turn it away." He looked at me then, directly. "You look like someone who remembers before you decide," he said. "That's useful in a cave." "What do you want us to do?" I asked. "Stand with us," he said. "Witness, keep time. Tell the captain what it costs. Help him buy only the seconds he needs, not the ones that will chain him." He tapped the doorstone twice. "The sea is patient," he said, "but not forever." He left as gently as he had arrived. We looked at the lantern again. It did not move. It did not ask. Dr. Leon closed her journal with both hands, like someone putting a child to sleep. "We'll return at first light," she said. "We'll bring field collars and a mirror array. We'll teach the corsairs how to use it without breaking themselves." "And if they don't listen?" Ada asked. "Then we do our work anyway," Dr. Leon said. "We leave the right sentence in the right place." I made the 5th mark on the wall, a line. I thought of writing my name. I did not. We left the chamber, slow and unafraid. The cave watched us go. Outside, night had gathered in plain sight, and the sky lanes glowed with passing hull lights. A low ship slid across the moon and turned, not on wind, but on will, measured by physics and old grief. Back in the village, Soran waited with lamps that used flame in the old way. "Some things are better because they end," he said, handing me one. "Not the lantern, not tonight, but some things." We sat under a roof of woven sails and listened to the tide choose a pace. We spoke little. The quiet was enough. At dawn, the corsairs came. Their ships were light and scarred. Their banners were not flags, but arrays of blinking sails sending status. They landed like careful birds on the cliff shelf. Men and women climbed down with hands that knew rope and field alike. They carried their captain between them. He was young in the way that sailors are young, which is to say, he had already faced storms and did not pretend he hadn't. His eyes moved too fast. His muscles twitched like wire learning a new language. Soran met them. He said the names of their ships before they spoke. Naming is a way of welcoming that does not promise more than truth. Dr. Lion checked the captain with a scanner the size of a hand. Overcharge along the anterior cortices,
she said, soft. "He needed a collar the day before yesterday." "We didn't have a collar," one of the corsairs said too quickly. "We had storm glass and a prayer." "We have both now," Soran said, and his voice was not unkind. "We guided them toward the cave. Harrow carried the mirror array. Ada carried the collars. I carried the weight of what happens when you step too close to a good thing." At the threshold, the captain looked at me. "I'm called Rook," he said. He smiled, thin. "Because I used to be good at straight lines." "We're going to bend a few," I said, "but only the right ones." He nodded, trusting a stranger, because sometimes the only thing you can do is accept a sentence someone else begins and hope you like the end. Inside, the lantern waited like a held breath. We set the mirrors, angled, checked the spill. We tuned the collars so the field could touch the captain without taking him. "Don't look at it full," Dr. Leon said. "No one, not even by accident. We work with edges. We work with reflection. We give the field a little of him, then ask for it back." Rook lay on a foam pad. He breathed fast, then slower. The collar hummed like a lullaby with homework in it. Ada caught my eye. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," I said. Dr. Lion opened the array by a finger's width. The lantern brightened in the mirror, not more, but nearer. Rook's tremors slowed. His eyes stopped flicking like fish at the surface. He took a breath that sounded like land after months of rain. We held him there in the shallow end of the field. We counted seconds, then let them go. We let the lantern keep nothing permanent. We taught mercy to be brief. When we closed the array, Rook blinked tears he didn't apologize for. "Thank you," he said, voice steadying. "I can feel where I frayed. I can feel where I'm mending. Don't open it again, not for me. I like lines. I want mine to curve and then end." We stayed a while because endings deserve witnesses. Soran told a short story about a dog that learned to ride a kite. The corsairs laughed in relief. In the corner of the chamber, the name on the wall did not change. Ilen. The letters were still new. Some part of him was still holding the seconds he had bought for others, long after those seconds had been spent. On the way out, I stopped at the 5th mark. I made a 6th, a small one, not to count distance, to count choice. Outside, the morning was a clean page. The sea wrote its old sentence and signed it with foam. The quiet was enough. The corsairs left offerings on the sand, rope spliced clean, a coil of copper wire, a sail patch with a stitched star, payment for seconds returned. Soran stood with his hands behind his back and watched the tide choose a new edge. "Debt done," he said. "Debt remembered." The quiet was enough. We slept a little. I dreamed of lines on water that were also words. I woke to gulls that were drones in patient clothes. By mid-morning, the village began to move again. Kites went up, boats hummed. Children argued kindly about the shape of clouds. Soran beckoned me from the doorway of the telling hall. He carried a cloth tube with a seal I hadn't seen before. He set it on the table between us. "This is the chapter I keep under the floor," he said, "because it doesn't need to be told often, because it hurts the right way." He unrolled a thin scroll of polymer film and old paper laminated together, Ari's handwriting ran along the left edge. On the right, a diagram of the lantern's lattice, drawn with the precision of someone who loved both machines and mercy. She left this when she knew Ilen wouldn't come back in a way that made sense, Soran said. She wrote it on a night when the sea forgot to make sound. She asked that it be read to people who can measure their own fear. I read, Remainlight Field Notes. If you stand too close to the beautiful thing, it will teach you how to stand there forever. If you step back, it will teach you timing. Use it to buy a breath and nothing more. Do not let it write you.
I love a man who could not stop giving seconds away. I love him as the wave loves the shore, enough to change it. Keep the lantern in reach of those who will count aloud. The last line had a small smear, as if a tear had argued with a measurement and been allowed to stay. Soran watched me read and did not interrupt. When I finished, he tapped the diagram. She also drew this, he said, a resonance pattern. We don't have the tools to match it, but you might. She thought the lantern could be asked to speak, not only hold. She heard a voice in the cave, not words, but a pattern that wanted to be a message. She believed it was the first makers. The groundfarers, I said. He nodded. Call them what you like, he said. They were here. They knew storms. They knew we would come after and that we would be clumsy with our love. I rolled the film back with care. I'll show this to Dr. Ilen, I said. We can try a whisper-level interrogation. Mirrors only, no direct gaze. We ask like good guests. Soran smiled at the phrase. Good guests, he said. That is our highest rank. Back at the skiff, Dr. Ilen had built a small bench of instruments that looked like wind chimes who had gone to university. Harrow tuned the power floor down until the meters purred. Ada laid out a ring of polished glass the size of her palm. Talk to me about Ari, she said, eyes on the array. I told them the chapter. I read the lines aloud. I watched the sentences walk into the room and sit where they pleased. Dr. Ilen folded the resonance sketch into our plan. Ari heard a carrier signal under the holding field, she said, a pilot tone. If we can sample the field's fringe without feeding it a human pattern, we might get a packet. We'll use a surrogate. Salt water, plant current, ambient charge. Nothing with a cortex. Good, Harrow said. No brains. Ada squeezed my shoulder. She left the right sentence, she said. We all knew which line she meant. We went back to the cave at the hour the islanders call Stillwater, between tide and tide, between decisions. The hand on the back of my neck found me again at the threshold. I bowed to it, like you bow to the teacher who doesn't smile but saves you anyway. We set the mirrors. We lit the collar only enough to keep our pulses honest. Dr. Ilen slid a tiny probe into the edge of the field. No eyes, no names, just the sea in a vial and a fern leaf that still remembered sun. The lantern brightened a shade. A human cannot see, but a meter can. The array hummed. The scope showed a comb of frequencies with one tooth missing, like a mouth that had lost a childhood secret. There, Dr. Ilen whispered. Chirp spacing. Repeat interval 91 seconds. That's narrative. They're telling something the way a tide tells it. We waited. The cave counted for us. 91 seconds returned like a friend who doesn't knock. Harrow shifted his weight, then stopped shifting. He listened. Ada closed her eyes and did not look through them. I pictured Ari's hand drawing lines on a night that needed them. The scope drew a clean pattern at last. 3 clusters, then a long rest, then a soft taper. Dr. Lian mapped it against basic encodings and found no match any machine would brag about. She tried the old human trick. She read it as breath. 3 parts, she said. A making, a using, a leaving. The taper says, remember without clinging. It's not words, it's intention thrown into physics. Origin, purpose, protocol, Harrow said. He grinned like a man who loves a simple sentence more than a complicated victory. Can we ask a question back? I asked. We can ask by behaving as if we heard them, Dr. Lion said. That's how you speak to a field, with choices. She turned the array a single degree. We gave the field a little more of the sea in our vials and a little less of our heat. The pattern shifted to a softer slope. It felt like gratitude, if gratitude were a slope. We packed up slowly. We left the mirrors angled so the lantern could see the void and not only us. At the mouth, Soran waited with one of the island children. She was 10, perhaps? Her kite hung from her shoulder like a quiet pet. This is Nail, Soran said. She asked to ask you something. Nail looked at our boots, and then at our hands, and finally at our eyes. When I am old, she said, will the lantern still be here? We looked at one another. Ada knelt so their faces were close. If we're wise, Ada said, it will be here, and it will be harder to reach. Nail nodded, as if she had expected the answer and wanted to check we were the kind of people who would give it. Soran sent her to carry a message to the kite master. He stayed. Ari's last request had a second page, he said, eyes on me. I didn't show you earlier because I wasn't ready to say it aloud. I am now. He handed me a small shell case with a seal scratched into it. Inside, a chip, old. A faint blue mark along the side in the shape of a sail. Ari asked that if the high ships ever came with the tools to move stone, the lantern should be given a deeper home, Soran said. Not hidden, guarded by the sea in a way that slows the greedy and steadies the brave. She wrote coordinates under the case lining. I lifted the lining. The numbers were there. A trench finger off the main fault. A cave whose mouth only opens on a minus tide once every 41 days. Dr. Lion exhaled. That's a hard place, she said. Good, Soran said. We spent the afternoon planning, gently, like people folding paper for a game that matters. Harrow tuned the skiff's field anchors for subsurface work. Ada spoke with the gliders who knew the trench winds. I sat with Soran and wrote the sentence I would read to the village if we failed, a simple thank you and a promise about what we had tried to do and why. At dusk, the corsairs returned, not with a plea, but with help. Rook walked under his own will. His line had steadied. He carried a case of mirror plates wrapped in sailcloth. My debt was seconds, he said. I pay in reflections. They're good quality. We use them to talk to storms. Soran accepted the gift with a bow that meant friend, not guest. We left on the minus tide with 2 gliders above and 1 boat below, humming on field. The sky was a bruise turning to pearl.
The sea opened where it only sometimes opens. The quiet was enough. At the trench lip, the world narrowed to black glass and our own careful breaths. We slipped into the mouth Ari had marked decades ago. The hand on my neck became a map. We moved through rooms that felt like they remembered us from dreams we hadn't had yet. Dr. Leon counted 91 in her head and touched the wall each time she reached the rest. Harrow marked the stone with chalk that glowed and then politely went out.
Ada read the pressure like a song. The chamber we found was smaller than the first, but deeper in its patience. The floor held the faint ripple of charge, as if the sea had laid down a blanket and told it to wait. We set the mirrors in a ring. We lifted the lantern with 2 hands each, like a body. It was not heavy. It was stubborn in a way that respected us for trying. We lowered it to the new cradle. The field sighed. Something old unclenched. Dr. Leon opened the array by a breath. The chirp returned. 3 parts. Make, use, leave. Then a new coda, a line even softer than gratitude, like rain on skin after work. "Thank you," Harrow said, aloud, because sometimes ceremony is just choosing which word gets to be the room. We sealed the chamber with a plate the size of a door and the weight of a decision. We left an access key behind the 3rd rib, engraved in standard and in the Ilen script, and in the simple language of a diagram anyone with hands could understand. At the mouth, the tide had changed its mind. The sea rose with dignity. We went out in time. Soran met us on the cliff with a lamp that used fire. He looked at our faces and nodded once. "Better," he said. He did not ask for proof. The village held a quiet meal. No speeches, just fish and bread and a sweet drink made of a fruit that looked like a lantern and tasted like a patient orange. Rook told a story about a sky lane that crossed itself and made a knot you could ride all day if you were lonely and wanted the comfort of passing the same moon twice. Ada laughed into her cup. Harrow tried to tie the knot with rope and failed cheerfully. I stepped away and sat with Soran on the sand, where the water could reach and not take us. He removed the shell case from his pocket and turned it in his hands. "I kept Ari's 2nd page too long," he said. "No," I said. "You kept it until the sentence could land." He looked at the horizon where 3 gliders moved like careful handwriting. "Ari lived a full life," he said. "She took no oaths to stone. She married the wind instead. She came to the cave on calm days and spoke in a voice I could not hear, to someone I think she still loved in the only way that did not hurt him more." We listened to the bells breathe. We did not add wisdom. The quiet was enough. We stayed a week. We taught the collar to the kite master. We wrote a protocol in chalk and laminated it into something that could survive a careless storm. Remainlight, use, village rule. Mirrors only, seconds, not minutes, edges, not eyes. Let go when the breath comes back. Count aloud, leave a mark and a sentence. Nale practiced the counting with a voice that would one day steady a whole room. On the last night, Soran walked me to the tide line. He handed me a small folded paper. Inside, a sentence in Ari's hand, copied by his. "Sometimes mercy is the length of a held breath." He put his palm against mine. "Take that back to your high ship," he said. "Teach it to anyone who wants forever. Teach them the better word." "What's the better word?" I asked. "Enough," he said, and smiled like a man who knows the feel of it. We lifted on the morning wind. The carrier opened its belly and accepted our little skiff, like a parent who has learned not to ask questions before coffee. Ada set us down soft. Harrow stowed the collars with the same care he used for stories. Dr. Leon tagged our data with one line. We spoke politely to a field, and it spoke back in weather. I wrote the report. I used short sentences on purpose. I added a refrain, the way a good story needs a handrail. The quiet was enough. We briefed the carrier the next day. Dr. Leon spoke first. She kept it spare. "Artifact is a preservation lattice," she said. "Anthropic bias prefers living patterns. We did not move it. We moved ourselves." She put the village rule on the wall in 6 lines. Seconds, not minutes. Edges, not eyes. Count aloud. An ethics officer asked the heavy question with a careful voice. "Why not bring the lantern aboard?" "Because it is not ours," Dr. Leon said. "Because the field is embedded in terrain. Because the safest protocol is the slowest one." She let the quiet be enough. A requisitions chief cleared his throat. "Central Lab wants a representative sample," he said. "Sample is a small word," I said. "This is a large place." I set Ari's note on the table and read the line we loved. "Use it to buy a breath and nothing more." Then I read the second line. "Do not let it write you." Ada showed the mirror kit Rook had given. Harrow showed the collar that hummed like a steady heart. We spoke the tide's language. We spoke in seconds. The room softened. The requisitions chief put his pen away. The ethics officer wrote 2 words next to our protocol: Village Standard. We left the debrief with permission to help, but not to harvest. That was the right shape. Seasons turned. We worked elsewhere, then we came back. The island had changed the way patient places do, by knowing us and not needing us. Nail had grown a handspan. She flew a glider now. She called to us across the water with the strong voice of someone who counts aloud so others can rest. Soran's beard was the same. His eyes were bluer, or maybe I had learned their true color. We brought gift kits, new colors, mirror plates, printed cards with the rule in 3 languages, and a set of diagrams a storm could read. We climbed the cliff at dusk. The bells breathed. The cave tasted like iron and rain. The hand at my neck was gentler, as if it recognized our steps. We checked the deep chamber once. Mirrors set, seal sound. The lantern kept its simple self. The chirp still came every 91 seconds. Make, use, leave. Then the soft rain of thanks. On the wall of the outer room, the names remained. Ilen, written more carefully than time. The stain of blood that had waited decades finally looked a shade drier, as if the world had remembered it is allowed to finish things. Soran met us at the mouth with a question he had not asked before. "Do you hear him?" he said. "I hear footsteps I can't count," I said. "I hear decisions," Ada said, softer. "I hear a pattern that is thinner than it was," Dr. Leon said. Soran nodded, a tide of a nod.
Sometimes at night, he said, a man sets a cup on the table and does not spill it. We drink, and then the cup is not there.
I think Ilen is learning to leave. The quiet was enough. A storm season came and went. The island used the rule well. A child with fever, a line caught wrong in a field winch, 2 seconds borrowed, 3 returned in gratitude. No eyes, no minutes, edges only. We were packing to lift when the kite master ran across the sand. He did not run often. Down the trench, he said, breath steady, eyes steady. Something has changed its mind. The field has shifted. The chirp is late. We went with him because some sentences deserve a listener now. The minus tide had opened the narrow mouth by a finger more than usual. We slipped in without speaking. The hand on my neck felt like a map again. In the deep room, the lantern sat where we had cradled it. The mirrors were sound. The air held a cool taste like the beginning of snow. Dr. Lion tuned the scope. The comb appeared. 2 clusters. Then a pause too long. No third cluster. No coda. Something's tired, she said. Not broken, tired. Soran stood with his palm near the wall. He did not touch. Sometimes a remainder runs out of places to stand, he said. Sometimes the kindest thing is a place with fewer ledges. We understood what he was asking. We had always known this day could arrive. Consent, Dr. Lian said, to herself and to us. We don't act without it. How do we ask? Harrow said, voice small in a good way. Remainders hear different doors. Soran took from his coat a small slate. On it, a sail mark, Aria's mark. He set the slate on the floor where the lantern could see it in reflection. He took out a piece of charcoal and wrote 3 words next to the mark. You may rest. We waited. The cave counted for us. The light inside the lattice moved like a breath, remembering ribs. A shimmer lifted from the stone by the island marks, no taller than a man, no brighter than a thought. Not a ghost, not a trick. A pattern that had learned to help at the edge of time and had not yet learned to stop. He did not look at the lantern. He looked past it, at the mirror, at the little sail. He traced the mark with a finger that did not dent dust, and dust moved anyway. I spoke aloud, slow. Ilen, I said. We are the ones who count. We know Ari's hand. We carry her sentence. We can make the field smaller if you wish. We can give time a way to find you kindly. The shimmer inclined, the way a man who has spent his life at sea inclines when he says yes without taking your eyes hostage. Dr. Lion's hands were steady. She set the array to attenuation, not feed. She marked the slope, 0.07, edges only. We would not push him out. We would move the walls away and see if he chose the open air. Ada stood at the mirror hinge, Harrow at the collars in case someone else needed seconds, Soran at the door, a witness doing the oldest work. We began. 1 degree. Pause. Salt, I thought. Name, I thought. Sky, I thought. The shimmer held. A thin line on the wall, the old cut that had refused to close, dampened, then darkened, then dried. Another degree. Pause. Count. A breath. The lantern's inner lake kept its pattern, but the edge stopped reaching for us. It was like a mother who had learned to watch without holding. Ilen stepped forward a pace. His outline gathered weight in the simplest way. Gravity remembered him. He looked at the wall. He wrote his name once more, and this time the letters did not shine like new coin. They sat with the older ones and did not argue. Last degree, Dr. Lyon said. We left him a choice. We always leave a choice. He did not look at the lattice. He looked at the slate, at Ari's mark, at the 3 words Soran had written. He put his palm flat on the stone. He pressed gently, as if teaching his hand how to be a hand again. Then he exhaled, and the exhale went all the way to its end. We closed the array. The field did not grab. Time found him. Not cruelly, not fast, like tide after wind. He aged the years he had deferred in a single soft wave. Hair gray, then white, skin thinning, then quiet, eyes bright, then bright in a different way. He sank to his knees. Soran was there, not touching, but close. If there were words, Soran said, so low the cave had to lean closer, they would be thank you. Ilen did not speak. He smiled at something we could not see. We could all guess. He lay down. He closed his eyes, and they stayed closed in the ordinary way. No pattern remained on the air. On the wall, the newest letters looked ordinary too. That was the grace. We sat a while in a room that understood endings without fear. No one tried to make a speech. No one tried to make it larger or smaller than it was. The quiet was enough. We told the village at sunset. We did not say immortality. We said mercy. We said held breath. We said choice. Ari's mark hung from the eaves on a sail scrap that did not touch flame. Nal read the 6 lines of the rule to the younger ones. They repeated each line like a tide. Rook brought his crew. They nodded to the cave and to the sky, in the equal way of people who have made peace with both. Soran poured a thin drink that tasted like weather and something sweet. He touched the rim of his cup to the rim of mine. Sometimes the right prayer is a protocol, he said. Sometimes the right protocol is a prayer, I said. We let the silence hold the rest. That night, I walked the beach alone. The sea wrote its long sentence in foam. I wrote my little sentence in sand and let the water edit. Sometimes mercy is the length of a held breath. The sea kept the gist. We stayed 3 more days. We checked the deep room once each morning. The chirp returned to its old shape. 3 clusters. Make, use, leave. Then the soft rain. We added a 7th line to the village card with Soran's consent. 7. When a remainder asks to rest, make a smaller room, then open the door. He traced the new line with a finger and looked pleased without smiling. That's good furniture, he said. On our last afternoon, Niall flew a glider in a clean circle over the cliff. She dipped once, a salute to a chamber that had become less crowded by one kind of kindness and more full of another. We lifted at dawn. The carrier took us in. The belly doors closed. Ada slept with a blanket over her shoulders. Harrow wrote a note to himself that said only, "Count aloud." Dr. Leon labeled the file with one line, "We did not cure, we cared. The difference matters." I sat at the forward window and watched the archipelago shrink to a string of dark coins on a table the sky owns. Year 2345, water below, islands remembering their own rules, a lantern in a room that asks nicely and answers in weather. I closed my eyes and kept one word: enough. You've been aboard the Lantern That Remains on Stardust Mysteries. New worlds every day. Tap subscribe on the right. Start the next story on the left. Good night, traveler.